I1. Very good morning to all of you. Greetings from the beautiful Sri Lanka. I'm Professor Indika Karunatilaka, President of the Sri Lanka Medical Association and the Vice President of the Asia Pacific Academic Consortium of Public Health. I'm connecting with all of you live from this historic Vijayaram House, the headquarters of Sri Lanka Medical Association. Once again, very good morning to over 1,000 participants who are joining with us from 40 countries, and good evening to the friends who are connecting from US and Canada. On behalf of Sri Lanka Medical Association and the Asia Pacific Academic Consortium for Public Health, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you for the first APAC SLMA International Virtual Conference on COVID-19 pandemic, breaking the transmission chain through community empowerment. This topic becomes even more pertinent at a time when COVID-19 is casting a shadow over the globe with over 3 million cases and with over 200,000 deaths. Today, all of us are connected during this historic international virtual conference to discuss how we can face this challenge together. And joining with me today in this historic auditorium at Vijayaram House, we have an elite panel of experts. From my right-hand side, I have Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama, who is the president of the Ceylon College of Physicians, and very importantly, the chief senior physician from the Infectious Disease Hospital in Sri Lanka, who is in the clinical frontline. On my left-hand side, we have Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, the Chief of Defense Staff and the Command of Sri Lanka Army, and again, very importantly, the head, National Operations Center for Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak. And then we have Dr. Anil Jasinghe on my left-hand side end, the Director General of Health Services, Sri Lanka. So here we have the leaders of the battle against frontline in Sri Lanka. And again, in our audience, in the auditorium in Sri Lanka, we have another elite panel of experts who are in the forefront of battle, representing all the specialties in medicine as well as other disciplines. Also the Triforces, the police and law enforcement. So here in Sri Lanka, we are connecting with you, all the stakeholders and all the top leaders related to the COVID-19. And my co-moderator is Professor Vayun Loh, who is the president of APAC. She has been in public health leadership position for over 3 decades, and currently the president of Asia Pacific Academic Consortium of Public Health, and also the deputy executive director in the Asia Europe Institute, University of Malaya. And her interest areas include behavioral sciences, behavioral change, which is very important at this moment, health promotion, HIV/AIDS, and aging and men's health. Over to you, Prof. Vayun, for your welcome address.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Indika. My greetings to His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, Head of the National Operations Center for Prevention of COVID-19, Chief of Defense Staff and Commander of the Sri Lankan Army, the Honorable Pavitra Vananachi, Minister of Healthcare, Sri Lanka, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, Director General of Health, Ministry of Health, Sri Lanka, Dr. Ananda Vikirama, Chief Consultant Physician, the National Infectious Disease Hospital, Sri Lanka, Professor Indika Karunatila, President of the Sri Lankan Medical Association, distinguished panelists from Australia, China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and also our in-studio expert panel. Fellow listeners in this webinar, thank you so much for coming to join us in this international webinar. Aibawan, selamat pagi, very good morning, and very good afternoon or good day to all of you here. On behalf of APAC and SLMA, Sri Lanka Medical Association, I take this great pleasure in welcoming all of you to the international webinar on COVID-19, Breaking the Transmission Chain through Community Empowerment, a pandemic issue that has become a leading and elevated concern to the world. This webinar is co-organized together with the Sri Lankan Medical Association, and I would like to thank SLMA for their great assistance and for hosting this very important webinar. We are very delighted indeed to have you all here to participate, exchange knowledge, as well as share experiences with each other. This webinar acts as a platform where all healthcare professionals convey their thoughts as to how they mobilize the community and respond to this COVID-19 pandemic. It is worthy to note a global meeting with distinguished participants from all over the world today. This is a good indication of the value of webinar, as it shows that citizens' health is a shared concern for all of us. APAC, an independent multinational non-government organization, take this opportunity to play a significant role in this pandemic. The discussion at this webinar will undoubtedly contribute towards debate on breaking the transmission chain of COVID-19 through community mobilization and empowerment. We hope that you will use this webinar as a platform to network while reflecting on the challenges and how to overcome this pandemic. I wish you all an enjoyable and productive discussion. Thank you all. Over to you, Indika.
Thank you, Professor Vayun, for those words of wisdom coming from the leadership position in the Asia-Pacific public health. We'll be now straight away moving into the academic program and the country presentations. We'll be starting with the host country, Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka has so far done exceptionally well in controlling the COVID-19 situation, and the Sri Lankan response has been very unique due to many reasons. One of the main priorities in the Sri Lankan response was identification of contacts and contact tracing and high-risk individuals, and quarantining and treating them. So with that approach, Sri Lanka has been very successful. This was achieved through a combined effort from the Triforces, the Sri Lanka Army, Navy, Air Force, the police, law enforcement, the Ministry of Health, and the public administrative system. This is something unique that we can learn about. There's no one better to talk about this combined effort other than Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, Head National Operations Center for Prevention of COVID-19. So let's listen to the experience that is shared by General Shavendra Silva.
At the onset, I am glad to deliver a brief description of the Sri Lankan approach in combating the COVID-19 outbreak at the head of the National Operations Center for Prevention of COVID-19, Chief of Defence Staff and the Commander of the Army. I would cover firstly the base of the approach, secondly the contribution by the military forces, and finally how the Sri Lankan approach became unique. With the spread of the COVID-19 globally, His Excellency the President appointed a task force on 26 January 2020 for preventing the spread of deadly COVID-19 in Sri Lanka. With the recommendation of the committee, closure of schools followed by movement of restrictions, curfews, isolation of affected areas are being enforced as and when required. The declaration of the COVID-19 as a pandemic by the World Health Organization (WHO), followed by the report of the first case in Sri Lanka and subsequent growth of cases, prompted the necessity of a national strategy to underpin the coordination, collaboration, and recalibration of responsibilities of different agencies, for which the National Operation Center for the Prevention of COVID-19 was established by His Excellency the President, entrusting me to spearhead its effective functioning. As we recognize the COVID-19 outbreak is beyond a health crisis, the response strategized the effort into three pillars: containment of affected cases, prevention of further spreading, and minimizing the losses of life. Firstly, the containment is spearheaded by tri-forces with frequent patronage of health expertise. Secondly, the prevention of further spreading is the responsibility of all citizens, and it heavily counts on the best health practices, personal responsibility, and law enforcing agencies, etc. Lastly, minimizing the losses of lives, moreover, relied upon patients' management by our great health authorities. In this backdrop, let me explain the unique role played by the armed forces. As the survivor of the nation at any difficult times, Sri Lankan armed forces coordinated the battle against this dangerous disease and were instrumental in containment and prevention of the disease being spread. The objectives were operationalized through the comprehensive quarantine process. Apparently, tri-forces are functioning more than 50 quarantine centers in island world. Contact tracing of the affected personnel is the most important factor for containment and further spreading. The intelligence services of the armed forces and the police, with the patronage of health authorities, are being tasked to conduct contact tracing into first, second, and third tiers of the confirmed, suspected, and exposed cases. Therefore, the quarantine processes and the conduct of PCR testing were followed up as and when required. However, the spatial distribution of the population in some areas is too congested in Sri Lanka, so that the home-based quarantine is not possible. To negotiate this, we introduced the root ball system, perhaps the first time in the world, in that we pulled out the personnel of close contacts as whole group and transferred them to quarantine centers. In addition, the areas seemingly contaminated are designated and kept as isolated zones, proscribing the inward and outward movements. Now I would bring upon how our approach became unique. The approach is based on the trinity of synergy, efficiency, and public compliance. If I harp about the achievement of synergy, the most response option prepared by the expertise from different fields are discussed, argued, and agreed upon at the National Operations Center Forum before operationalizing. The efficiency is ensured through calibration and prioritizing of role, responsibilities, understanding whom to support and whom to be supported in achieving sub-objectives, tasks, and actions to regulate the overall strategy. While elegant in its outlook, the strategy belied a jumble depending upon this public compliance. National and private media are extensively used for indoctrinating the necessity of compliance with instruction issued by all types of authorities. Therefore, I hope this trinity of synergy, efficiency, and public compliance serves as a unique approach for the response strategy. Finally, I would like to thank the Sri Lanka Medical Association for organizing this virtual conference, giving an opportunity be connected to an intellectual forum of this nature so that we can mutualize our experiences. I am fervently looking forward to share and receiving valuable comments, views, and of course, the information that would be useful to fight against COVID-19 in future. Thank you.